News broadcasting live from Hostages Square in Tel Aviv, where it has been an emotional morning here as crowds have gathered on the square watching and waiting to see the faces of the three men released today as part of the ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas. The three men were paraded in Khan Yunis in southern Gaza a little earlier in the day. They were released from captivity by Hamas and by the other group in Gaza that have been holding them over the last 16 months, Palestinian Islamic Jihad. They are Yair Horn, 46-year-old, Sagi Dekel Chen, and Sasha Trufanov. They were paraded before being handed over to the Red Cross. The men, who had spent nearly 500 days in captivity, will undergo medical examination and meet family members. Now, these are live pictures from Rain in southern Israel, where you can see there a helicopter waiting to bring those three hostages to Tel Aviv, where they are going to undergo quite a thorough investigation and quite a thorough medical examination, both external medical examination but also psychological evaluation, to try to determine whether they are in a stable state now to be able to readapt to their normal lives. Sagi Dekel Chen, one of the three men who has been released, has now met his wife, who gave birth to their third child in December 2023, 2 months after he was captured. And he has said, "I am great." He is meeting his third daughter for the first time. You can see there one of the helicopters preparing to take off, a short trip to Tel Aviv, where they will now have medical examinations. Now, these are also live pictures that are coming to us from Offa prison in the occupied West Bank, where 369 Palestinians are due to be released. Some of them already have been released, indeed, as part of this ceasefire deal. These are Palestinian prisoners who were held, in some of them, for life sentences, convicted of very serious crimes, murder and attempted murder and attacks on Israelis, but the majority were arrested and held after the 7th of October. The exchange was thrown into doubt earlier this week after Hamas said it would suspend the release, accusing Israel of violating the truths, something it denied. But Egyptian and Qatari mediators helped to stop the ceasefire deal collapsing. So you can see there back in the skies above southern Israel, that helicopter now in the air, preparing to take the hostages to Tel Aviv, where they will meet more of their families. And as I say, they will have the medical checks and to spend a few more days in hospital. Well, a lot of relief then about the three men who have been released today, but there are still more than 70 hostages who are remaining in captivity in Gaza, and a lot of trepidation really from people here in Hostage Square over the fate of them. Among them is Nimrod Cohen, who is 20 years old. He is a soldier in the Israeli Defense Forces, and he was captured on the 7th of October. A little earlier, I spoke to his mother, Vicky Cohen, here on Hostages Square, and I asked her for her reaction to the releases today.
I'm very, very excited to see the picture of the three hostages that came back to the families after so long. But I'm very worried for my son, Nimrod, who is still in captivity. The border asked the population, but they couldn't manage because there was a technical problem with the tank, and the mass of terrorists came to them, and they didn't have a chance.
Vicky, what has the last 16 months been like for you and your family?
Oh, it's a nightmare. We don't live, we don't sleep. There is uncertainty about everything, even about the deal. The first phase, it can collapse every minute. It's very fragile, and we are worried how long it will take, how long I have to wait till I will see my son, Nimrod.
Vicky Cohen there, still waiting for news of her son Nimrod, who she hopes will be released in phase 2 of the ceasefire deal, if indeed we get to that point, because as we were saying, their ceasefire deal can still survive and can be viable in the longer term. Let's bring in Mohammed Hegazi, who is a former Egyptian assistant foreign minister, and therefore very much in one of the places that is central to the regional mediation in this ceasefire deal. Mohammed Hegazi, thanks very much indeed for joining us here on BBC News. How would you assess the chances of the negotiations progressing now and in terms of moving towards a second phase of the ceasefire deal, and whether this deal can actually last going forward?
Well, if the two parties adhere to their commitment, then we have no problem. It's almost 2 weeks now that the Israelis did not send their delegation to start negotiating the second phase. So the delay of the release, and the second phase, by the way, is the most important to the release of the largest number of the Israeli prisoners. So this delay is unjustified. The continuation of breaching the items and articles of the peace deal or the ceasefire brought us to a standstill, a situation where the mediators have played over the past 5 days an extremely important dealings between the two parties, and successfully we saw the results today. Palestinians are so happy, so is the Israelis. And I'm sure that if the Israeli government moves fast and open up a serious negotiation with the true negotiators, then I can tell you that we trust that this very important deal will last. And this is, I think, the chance, not through war, no through resuming hostilities, but it's to stick to a very important deal that we, Americans and Qataris, have spent with the Israelis and Palestinians a great deal of efforts over 15 months of negotiations. So time has come that everybody realized that this deal is the only peace deal on the table. The alternative is destructive to the prisoners, is destructive to Gaza's future and to the stability in the Middle East. I think the rationale here is that the two mediators are not enough. The American administration also is engaged. This negotiation was run by the previous administration and the present one. Ambassador Witkoff is in the region, and I'm sure that he plays a very constructive role to bring the parties together. It's up to the Israelis now to answer to the family and bleed of the people gathering next to you.
Let me ask you, Mohammed Hegazi, sorry to interrupt because we are running against the clock as ever. As we were talking to you, we're watching live pictures from the occupied West Bank of families waiting for the release of Palestinians from the jails there, from the Israeli jails there. But you mentioned how the role that the Americans are playing in all of this. Donald Trump, of course, in the last week or so has muddied the waters to a large extent by talking about how the Americans would take over Gaza and resettle the Palestinians from the Gaza Strip. What is your reaction to that and the impact that his comments are having on the viability and sustainability of this ceasefire deal?
Well, this is not very conducive at all. You have seen the condemnation of such declarations all over, from Europe, from your own country, here in the Middle East. The two parties need to sustain the current peace deal, which has been also conducted by Egypt, Qatar, and the United States with the full consent of the present government. We have to ask them to stand accountable to their commitment. Otherwise, such declaration is not helpful at all.
Can I ask about whether the Egyptians are indeed coming up with an alternative? Because Donald Trump and the White House, trying to sort of calm things slightly after those comments in the last few days, have said, well, if others have a viable alternative, now is the time to come up with it. So is Egypt going to propose an alternative for Gaza's rebuilding?
Indeed, we will submit the plan to the Arab...
Agi Dekel-Chen, Sasha Trufanov and Yair Horn, now on their way back to be reunited with their families and to try to rebuild what remains of their shattered lives.